Have you ever been in a situation where you were in an interpersonal interaction that didn't go well? You walked away from it and you realized that it was more confrontational than you intended and that ego really got involved? Yeah, I think we've all been in that situation. And I've recently had two of these encounters that got me thinking about this idea of ego that I wanted to share a little bit about today and talk a little bit about. Hey there, if you are new here, my name is Matt. I'm a practicing emergency physician, husband and father. And this channel is all about life in emergency medicine. So I want to tell you two stories about two different encounters that happened recently that have a common thread. So this morning we had a soccer game for my oldest son. It's a typical, kids soccer game. There's, a little bit of element of strategy that's starting to develop in these kids, but there is still some of that cluster effect where they all run around the ball. But the kids are getting a little bit more aggressive with their playing. Obviously things are going to happen. So in this particular instance, my son was dribbling the ball down the field and he had a couple of defenders coming up against him and went to get through the defenders. And for whatever reasons, really kind of happened too quick for me to completely have gotten it, but for whatever reason, he kind of did a little slide kick with the ball. And in this league, in this level, slide tackles are not allowed. And I guess this is kind of where the controversy came, because the question was it a slide tackle? He was technically in possession of the ball and kicking it, but the kids aren't allowed to kind of slide and kick. And so there's a couple different individuals, a couple different of the adults along the sidelines that started having a little bit of a debate about this particular move, right? And the debate kind of got a little bit heated. And fortunately, nothing came to being physical. I was wondering if that was going to happen, because I was like, guys, this is my kid. Like, this is not worth having a fight over. The ref didn't call it, right? He didn't get hurt. The game just kind of kept going on. And so, I was just kind of a little bit confused as to why this became a little bit of an argument, other than the fact that ego got involved. Right? One person said, this is it. One person said, no, this is not. Another person got involved, and then conflict, eventually ensued. And it got me thinking about something that happened earlier in the week at work. And so this was a situation where we were resuscitating a trauma patient. And as we were watching what was going on, one of the members of the team did something that I didn't particularly enjoy. Right? And so I made it my point to go and let him know that I didn't appreciate what he did, right? And then he dug in, I dug in. And as I left that situation, I realized, number one, I did not make the situation better. In fact, I kind of instigated the problem. And number two, I wasn't really in the right when it came down to the merits of the argument anyway. And so all I ended up doing is putting my foot in my mouth and then continuing to push it further and further down my throat as I was continuing on in this conversation. And I tell these stories because there's a common theme, right? There's a common thread between these two stories. And that's this idea of ego, right? This is the common thing that links these two stories. And in both situations, whether it be the people on the sidelines at my kid's game or me in the trauma bay, ego got involved and got in the way and interfered with what we were intending to do. And the first situation, it was watch a soccer game. And in the second situation is provide the most excellent care for the patient in front of us. So I've been thinking about these things. I've been thinking about an encounter all week. I've been thinking about this game for the last couple hours. And there's three things that I think are helpful to remember when it comes to these situations, right? And the interpersonal reactions where ego has the potential to get involved. Number one, it's important that we keep perspective. When we get our ego involved, we get so focused in on a narrow aspect of the overall event that's happening, right? In the situation of the soccer game, the ego got involved and we forgot about the fact that we were at a game, right? Watching kids play. And in the trauma bay, we forgot about the fact that we were taking care of a patient, and it all of a sudden became about something else, right? And one of the things that I've realized over the years, not everything is worth a fight. Sometimes just let things go, right? Sometimes it's not worth picking a fight, even if you are in the right, and especially if you are in the wrong. So it's important for us, as we think about our ego, to keep a broader perspective of really what's going on around us, who is around us, and how can we be improving the situation around us. The second one is, what is the point of what you're trying to do, right? And we were talking about this at lunch today with the kids, is when you have an argument, right? And by this term argument, I'm going to just say debate, right? When you have a debate, when you have an argument, what is the point of the argument? Is the point to defeat somebody, or is the point of the argument to win hearts and minds to your position or your opinion on a matter, right? And I think it's the latter. You know, we're going to come across or come into conflict with people all the time, right? Where one person thinks one thing and one person thinks another thing. And the point of this discussion that we're going to have is either to affect our own thought process, correct our own thought process, or if we are in the right, to win the hearts and minds of the person that we're talking with, to convince them that our position is the position that needs to be taken. Once we start getting ego involved, right? Once you start attacking the other person, right? Especially when names are starting to be called, the argument no longer is about the thing, it's about the person. It's really pivoting the argument away from the merits of the topic or the subject or the thing being discussed in towards the merits of the person. It's saying, I no longer want to argue about whether or not we should do A or B, but I'm going to insult you, or I'm going to argue about some aspect of you as a way of trying to undermine your position. And this is always considered to be, a fallacy in true argumentation and debate, but is also an ineffective way of getting back to what our ultimate goal is, right? It steers us away from that goal of let's discern truth together, right? Let's either inform my position or let's inform your position. And when we get ego involved, when we start attacking the person, it sets up these barriers that prevents us from getting to that final goal of getting to the truth. And number 3 is just we need to remember that humility is not synonymous with weakness. Right? We have this natural tendency in our hearts to basically, when we get confronted, to take it personally, to let ego get involved, and then we seem to think that if we back down, if we capitulate, or if we adjust our position, that's showing weakness, right? And I think the reality is something that's completely opposite, right? The ability to stand controversy in the face or stand difficulty in the face and be reasonably unmoved, at least emotionally, but be able to reason with that and think through that and have the mental flexibility to be able to adjust your position or to help encourage someone else to adjust their position is really a form of strength. It's a power that needs to be developed and honed, but it's a real form of strength, and it's not necessarily a signal of weakness. So I think we need to rid ourselves of this idea that if we somehow back down, step away, or don't engage in this form of a conflict, that we are the weak individual here. So I hope these thoughts are helpful to you. I'm certainly no expert on managing my own ego, as we were able to discuss. Something that's daily. I have to remind myself that ego is not the most important thing. In fact, ego is the enemy. That in order to be most successful in what I want to pursue, right, the things that I'm engaged in, that I have to subordinate my ego as I seek to interact with other people in this world. So if you find this interesting, find this helpful, you find yourself in situations like this, let me know. Leave some comments below about situations or examples where you have really had to check your own ego, or you've seen someone who's had to check their ego, and some strategies maybe that you have to managing and mitigating the effects of your ego. As always, if you like this content, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Hit that like button, and we will see you guys in the next video. See you guys. Bye.